I want you to know it's only like 0.0001 of a strike because you're never going to get to 3 strikes, you're out.
Man. Okay, so I just started the recording, so I'm just going to recap what we've talked about real quick before I click on this button. All right, download your app. Sign in as a consumer. If you can't sign in with your KW email, make sure you're using a personal email because this is a consumer app. Once you're there, hit the little person that says more. At the top underneath your name, it will say find an agent. Hit find an agent, search yourself, and select you as the agent. That's what brands your site. Then we go into the, you always use the KW Mullinex page, hit your command and sign in. On your dashboard, you're gonna hit command training, and that will take you to this page, and you'll scroll down until you see this and hit find training. That will bring you to this subsection. So as I was saying, all of these are broken down into sessions. You can see if it's a video or if it's a read, meaning an article. The articles always include screenshots of what the actual thing that you're supposed to be looking at looks like. So that way you can follow along a little easier. I'm gonna start in session 3 just because I already went through here to see what was relevant to our class so that way I could do it. And I actually found a pretty cool video. So I'm going to actually play it because it actually gives a lot of information that's super helpful that I thought would be really important because it's all about customizing your consumer experience. And what they talk about is not just why it's relevant to your customer, your client, but also they talk about how it kind of impacts your business a little bit. So, and I just realized I look like I'm talking down to my areas. Okay, anyway. I'm gonna play this. Now, when I hit start, if you can't hear it, please let me know because I do have it plugged into my Jumbotron and I just wanna test and see if I can't do that. If not, I'll have to just unplug it. So just let me know if you can't hear it.
We can hear it.
Badly. I hear it badly.
Yeah, turn it up a little bit, maybe.
That's inspiring to us. So let's get into this, right? Let's refresh what we've accomplished.
Better?
We have this thing, and that's the bad drawing of the cell phone, and it's in all of your consumers' pockets. And in it, they have all of these different apps, and now they have your app. This is vitally important because you've gotten a huge advantage. While the rest of the competition is busy using email, text message, in-person visits, through the mail, you now have a whole new means to communicate with your consumer. The remote control for your life is the phone, and you are now present in their pocket. So how do we make sure you're getting the most out of that experience? Well, we call this guide. What the guide is a self-curated, task-oriented list of exactly what you want the consumer to do and how you want them to move through the transaction. This is really important, right? Because your direct value proposition is going to run in relation to the guide. Meaning if you think that the first step should be sitting down and making a wish list, you'll make that the first step in your guide. If you think the second step is getting pre-approved with Keller Mortgage, you'll make that the second step in your guide. So step 1 is really pulling out a sheet of paper and a pen and writing down what you think the optimal buyer experience is and seller experience. Now, step 2 is going to be getting in and being really specific about making sure that it looks the way you want and it reads the way that you want. Now, here's the good news. Right now, your guide has been populated by Keller Williams, and it matches up perfectly with the buyer guide and the listing guide within Designs. So, if you don't want to customize it, don't. It's awesome. But if you do want to customize it, David's going to show us how. David, how do I go in and customize the guide?
That's where you could go in and reorder and customize the guide to exactly your business needs, right? You're going to have a buying guide and a selling guide that you'll be able to edit by clicking the pencil on the right-hand side of the screen. You can see once I go in here, there's a couple of different options. I can reorder the guide, or I can click in and actually change the picture and all of the information on each of these cards.
And this is why it was so important to make sure that you map your business. What do you want the experience to look like? What's step 1? What's step 2? What's step 3? And go all the way through. If you don't start with the end in mind, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And then what your consumer is going to see on the phone is they click in to guide, which is the center icon on their consumer app, and they're going to see the exact same thing on their screen that you have on your screen.
Well, and this is why that is in the center, right? We put it in the easiest place. It's so important. See, every other application that's out there gives the consumer information. That information, though, isn't connected to their fiduciary. So although you may somehow get an idea of what the steps are, your fiduciary isn't getting updated in real time, number one. And number two, it's usually the fiduciary didn't create it. It was created by some third-party tech company. They don't get to tell you the way they want you to represent your customers. You get to choose how to represent your customers.
Well, you know, a lot of us think that we have clients that want on-demand real estate agents. This is your chance for your clients to have what they really want, which is on-demand information.
Yeah, think of it like that Domino's pizza tracker, right? When you order a pizza, it takes you through and shows you through the process. Same thing here. Now, when the consumer goes through and self-checks something, that's going to show up in your command. Through opportunities, you'll be able to track it. When you go through and move them through, that's going to show up in their app.
Any questions about the stuff that you're not aware of, feel free to use the question mark in the top right corner to go to all of our resources.
Yeah, that question mark is super important. It's there, and we've made sure to link to all of the answers.
100%. They're all right there inside the question mark, and our team at KWU has done an awesome job to get everything you need in one spot.
We'll see you in the next video.
Okay, so the reason I want to show you that one is because it shows you specifically what they see on their app. Because as you saw a little while ago, me going like this makes it real hard for you to see what other people are looking at when they have it on their phone. So I like that one because it shows you what the guide looks like on their side. And it also talks about if they check something off, how it populates into your command. And then likewise, if you go into the guide and you select check marked on, I don't know, creating having a pre-approval, then that automatically moves them to the next step on their app. So when they click on their guide, it moves them to step 2 or step 3 or whatever your order is. So that's why I wanted to show you that video. It is here. It does say 4-minute video, so it's easy to follow along with. And there are articles here about, like, you can download a companion worksheet to kind of figure out what you want that consumer experience to be and how you want it to flow, so that way you know going in how you want to order or what you want to say for your guide. So that is a downloadable worksheet. This one is it says a 10-minute read, but literally it just shows you screenshots of how you go in to edit that. So if you are not a video learner, if that's not how you learn, and it's just easier for you to have an article with some pictures inserted on what you should look for and how you should do things, there is usually an article version also in that section with the video. So that is—
Hey, Tiffany.
What, huh?
I wish I had a hand raise or something. So to find this whole user guide, if you will, I need to be in command and then I click on connect in the upper left corner, right?
So,
and then
so when you are here
oh,
on your command home screen, it's actually this on the far left, very bottom, it says consumer. You click on that. And then once it loads, the third tab over is guide builder. It's just
okay.
a second. Sorry. Of course, because I'm teaching a class, it froze up for a second. There it goes. And that has your buying guide and your selling guide. Now, what I will tell you is the pencils are over here for you to do your editing. And it says something went wrong. There's actually more features in here. I think they're doing some updates. So right now, I can't show it to you, but there is a way for you to, well, there at least will be a way for you to create your own guide moving forward. So like if you are helping somebody with more of an investment where they're looking for something else, you could have a different guide setup is what I mean, is like if it's commercial or if it's leasing or if you're helping with rentals, whatever. So there will be an opportunity for you to do certain things and also personalize. So meaning you may have one buyer's guide set up for a first-time home buyer as opposed to somebody who's on their 5th house. So there will be some options for customizing in that regards where you'll be able to select different buyer guides for your consumers. That is not an option just yet. They did talk about it, but it is not functioning yet. So right now you just have your buying and selling, and you can use that pencil over there to edit them and rearrange the steps or create your own steps and insert them. So that's where it is. It's under consumer.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't even know that was there.
And this is actually where you go for your website. I'm going to go back to that real quick. This is, if you go to site and apps setting, this is actually where you start, like you use the information to brand your site, you fill all that out, and then you start going through the steps to create your agent site as well. So that's the same.
So if I want to update my headshot, when I update it on the agent site page, it'll update everywhere?
Yes and no. You have to make sure
Okay.
that it's updated in your profile and in your marketing profile, because that's where those from they go into the internet universe. So you want to make sure that they're accurate in your this profile here and your marketing profile once you're into your apps section, that profile as well. And then sometimes it is a good idea to untoggle when you do changes like that and then retoggle it over, so that way the whole system kind of like whoop, smacks back together. And then I would always check, give it a little bit of time just because it has to roll over. It should be pretty instantaneous, but give it a few minutes. And if your photo doesn't update, then go into the consumer section and manually change it in the consumer section. But you shouldn't have to, but just if it doesn't update, then that's where you would change that. Okay, so now we're gonna go to session 4. Okay, so we did session 3. That was just the video that we saw. Session 4 is talking about how to promote your app, how to connect your customers, your consumers with the app, and how to share it. So one thing I will say is there is a video in here. We're not going to watch it, but there is a video in here if that is an easier way for you to do things. However, I do want you just to know that there is a way for you to add the smart plan for Promote Your App to your people. So when you go in here, you have to always add the smart plans first. There is already a structured Promote My App one. You go in, make sure it says what you want it to say. I highly recommend that you put in that it is a brand new app, and we would appreciate if you would help us work out the kinks. So please give me your responses on what you've enjoyed about this app, and if there have been any issues, please let me know so I can get them worked out. And now when they're doing these Promote My Apps, they talk about adding bulk of 50 contacts at a time. I would not recommend that right away. I would send this in smaller groups to friends and family who you trust to give you honest reviews, and have them work with you first. And then as things progress, add more and more of your other clientele to it. It is a fantastic resource for you, but at the same time, it is new and it does have a little kinks. And if it's a customer that you're not feeling super connected to, it could in some way impact their decision to work with you. So you just want to make sure that you're being smart in who you're sending it to right away to make sure it all works and it all looks good. So
Is it not that you've got to say stuff like that?
Huh?
Is it still that clunky that we've got to say stuff like that? I mean,
It's not that it's wonky and that you have to say stuff like that, but as of right now, because they are still doing so many updates, we as the trainers are just kind of putting that in as a disclosure that they are constantly still doing updates to it. And so as of right now, there are on occasion still some wonkiness. There are still some neighborhoods that may show up a little funny, things like that. So they're still working on some stuff. So with that being said, we just like to have a disclaimer that says, you know, this is in labs, or that, you know, this is being updated, or what have you. I know that a lot of people have had great success and they've been doing so many updates. When it first came out, you could see that somebody had liked something in your app, but you couldn't see what they liked. It wasn't super helpful. But now, majority of the properties, I say majority because it's like 95%, but there are occasionally one or two where it will show you what property they liked, and it's a clickable link for you to go in and click and go, oh, well, that's funny that they picked this house. They said no porches, and this house has a massive porch. I'm gonna have a conversation with them and see if they've changed their mind about that or whatever. But 95% of them are clickable. Every once in a while, there's one or two that don't have a link to it. So, but you don't have to say that. With that being said, it's just a disclaimer that we give out.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, when you are promoting your app, you can do it by tags. So if you only wanted to send it to an area, like people who are, this one is an example of Austin buyers. So if you only wanted to send it to people who have a certain tag, that would be a place where you could filter them. You can also do by name. So if you were doing, say, the DT, I always say it wrong, but it's the one where you go by your alphabet for calling, the F and G, S and U. If you're going by that, you may want to filter and send it to your A and Ws at first.
D2.
Thank you. I always get that funky. So you can filter that way for adding them, and you can also do manual selecting to promote, just adding them to the smart plan. So with that being said, oh, there's a little video clip in there. Isn't that nifty? Huh. Well, anyway, you can also decide when they're going to start that smart plan, which is when they would be receiving the download my app, emails, text messages, those things. With that being said, I will show you really quickly before I move on. So over here under consumer is where you can find your app URL. So if you wanted to include that in your email signature, if you want to include that on print marketing, if you wanted to have it available in a Facebook post, whatever it is you're going to be putting your app out for promotion, you can go over here to site and app settings in your consumer button, site and app settings, and you scroll down here, and it is under URLs, that's why. Maybe. Oh, my URLs isn't loading. Well, that's not very helpful. Well, it's there. I promise you. I promise that if you hit this button and it loads and you scroll down, it will be towards the bottom. And it has a little copy link next to it, and you can use it to put on your designs and stuff like that. Dang it. The reason I was pointing this out is because if you've been in here previously, or if you were part of the promoting of your app in the beginning stages, so back from February to now, there was also an option to text a code for downloading the app. That has been removed. They have deactivated and removed it from the app. It is no longer visible here in this URL, and if you have used it on any of your marketing, you have to get rid of it because it's not going to work. It's not going to go anywhere. So they did remove that section.
No.
And they only did it last week is when that became a thing.
So I have that in my email that won't work anymore.
Right. You can use the URL if it would load. You would be able to use the URL that's here for downloading, but if the text code is included, it doesn't go anywhere anymore. They've removed that feature from the app.
Hey, I just used this yesterday and it did the text code.
In the URLs, because it hasn't been there for like a week.
Where it said, blah, 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 we'll send you a code.
They may have sent the URL, because the URL, you can still text it. Like you can create a text message and then put the URL code in there, and it looks very similar to the text code, but it's not the same. And if that is what was being sent, then it would still work because it's a URL. So that would still work. It may just be that you had the URL there instead of the actual text code that was there prior.
Okay.
So that has been removed. So just FYI on that one, if you have any of your stuff with the text code, make sure that it's the URL and not the text code, because that won't work. And I'm sorry that it's just not working. I don't know what to say about that. Sorry. They did a lot of updates yesterday. So we're not going to, huh?
Tech Tuesday, it's when they always do their updates, isn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I couldn't really even get into Command too much yesterday because they were doing a lot of updates and it kept signing me out. So I'm thinking that this is one of the things that they're working on, because they're really trying to help make the apps, stronger. So that way it's more user-friendly for the consumer, but also more user-friendly for the agent. And it is connecting so much, it interwebs so much into Command that, they really are putting a lot into it. So you can use the Smart Plan to promote your app. Now there's also creating a social media here for your app. There's also creating print for your app. So those are options for you to go through and look at these articles as well. I just want to click on the Share Your KW app. And it's a very short article. There's not a whole lot there, but it has a lot of the screenshots for you to go through. So log in, create an account. This is that login screen that we talked about. This talks about going to more, you'll have branded yourself, and then there's this button that says Share App. And then it will give you the share options. And then there you go. That's really all there is to it. It is the easiest way to share your app, is to share it directly through your phone. That's why it's so important to make sure you get signed in, and then make sure you have yourself selected. That's why I said it's so important to make sure you're picking yourself and not a Stacy Hesser that lives in, Alabama. So just make sure that when you are selecting you to brand your site, because that's when you share the app, it will share it as you. There is a whole list of applications that you can use. I mean, if you have a Twilio account, Twilio account connected to your Command, you can do text messages. Just make sure, like I said before, if you've had this set up previously, or if you're just setting it up, you won't have to worry about it. But that URL in that guide builder here, this is where that URL will live eventually. Okay. You can also put it on all of your medias, which we already talked about, and you can also put it into your emails. And there's also a way for you to include it as part of your quarterly call. So if you have somebody who you're cultivating who isn't really ready to buy, maybe they're a year out, maybe a little bit further, you may want to get them on your app, because it at least starts building things on your side of the connection. So that way when they are actually 6 months out, 3 months out, and you want to start them in the process, then you'll have a little bit more information about what exactly they're looking for. So that's all session 4. Session 5 is really the last session. And there is an 8-minute video in here. It is really, really helpful. However, I want to just talk about these before we get in there, because they'll actually show you how to do it. And then we're going to basically be wrapped up. So tracking your client with your KW app. So I did not know this, because I, not being an agent, don't have a site that is branded to me. So I just end up as the guinea pig for everybody else's branding. So I don't have this in my database, and I was not aware that it was doing this. If you have a contact in your database that has the app or has registered on your site, they will have a green check mark next to their name. And that means that they are connected to you. I didn't know that. I thought that was pretty cool. So I guess the goal that you could set for yourself, or that could work for your business, is to try to get as many of your database people green check marked, meaning that they are in some way connected to your app or to your website. Now, let's see, when you open up their contact card, again, it will have that green check mark next to their name, and it will also show you the activity in your timeline. Say, see how he's actually showing you. So he clicked on that listing and there was a little link. Now that link is clickable and it will bring you to that property that they hearted. And they'll actually show you.
I want that.
You want what?
That buyer.
Yeah, how about it? So I thought that was pretty cool. But that's for tracking your client. You can also manage your client, which are two different things. And I myself did not realize that as either. And so when you're managing your client, you're managing the guide. Again, they have the green check mark, but when you go in and you click on opportunities, you select the opportunities, and that's that seller profile. I misunderstood how this was working before, and I probably have answered one or two questions and have been wrong about it, and brave enough to admit that. So the seller profile or the buyer profile, depending on the type of opportunity, actually is the guide. I didn't realize that when they were discussing it as what was going to happen. I thought this is where the houses and stuff like that would default to, their hearts, their likes, their collections, all that stuff. And it is not. That all shows up in their timeline underneath the contact card. The stuff that shows up in your opportunity, either your seller or your buyer profile here, is actually what step they've completed in that guide you created. I was like, what? So needless to say, you can go in here and you can click manage guide and say that they have completed inspections and they didn't click it. You can click it and it will update their app. So that way the next time they go into guide, it will already have moved them to the next step and show that they've completed that step. So they can manage it and say, oh, I did this. And then you're like, oh, wow, they did that, great. Or you can say, oh, well, we did that. And then they can come over here and when they see their app, they're like, oh, our inspections are done. Oh, we get to go to the next step. So it's symbiotic. So no matter who is making the change, the other party knows that change has been made. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. So the last part of the class today for the app is just going to be this video. And then if we have a couple of minutes before we start the mastermind, I'll answer any questions that you guys might have if this video doesn't cover some of it.
Hey guys, it's Jason Abrams.
And David Voorhees.
And we are back. And we're going to talk about managing our client relationships using the KW app. And this is really important, right? Because I just want to reset this. Remember, all of our customers in one form or another are living on this drawing. And you remember, we talked about this in the first video. This is the day that they buy a house. This is the very next day. This is the next time they buy a house. But these points are separated by 3 to 7 years. So the challenge that we have as agents is how are we going to stay in omnipresent communication with them all the way through that journey? And then once they get here, how do we then really help take control of the transaction so that we stay at the center of the transaction right next to the consumer and give them the greatest experience possible? And that's what the app allows us to do. And that brings us back to guide. So if you're watching at this point, you've went and you've set up your guide. You know exactly how you want the buyer side to be and the seller side to be. You have your demonstrations and you have your pictures. Then you went in and you used one of the 4 ways that we showed you to get your guide into the phones of your consumers. Remember, we automated it for you. We made it commercial for you. And then we made it so that you could text it out. Now what we have to talk about is how do we start managing that relationship? Well, the first thing we need to know is how do we know that they got the app and that they're rolling with us?
Yeah, we've done all this work to get the app in the hand of our consumer. How do I know when they're involved? So I'm going to click into contacts. I've actually set myself up as a contact here in Irene's database. So I'm going to search for myself. And you can see here I am. You're going to notice on this screen there's a green check mark, but I'm going to drill into my contact card and you'll see it again. The green check mark is going to say agent site connection if you hover over it. What does that mean? That means your client is registered with you on your agent site or on your consumer app.
Cool. So I want everyone to have a green check mark.
Yep, easy answer.
Right. So we're always looking for best practice and general rules of thumb. Everyone in your system should have a green check mark. That means they're either using your desktop application version, which by the way is awesome, or they are using your app and that lives in their phone.
Exactly.
Perfect. Okay, so now that we're connected, they're going to start doing things in their phone. How do I know?
Yeah, so there's a handful of things that you can see the client do, and I'm not going to read you the whole list, but I'll tell you some of them. If they associate or register with you, log in, log out, view listings, create collections, edit collections, view collections, share collections. You can actually see if they're online or not. You can see their search activity, save searches. The list goes on and on of all the things you can see.
So really what we've done is we've linked the consumer experience back to the real estate agent's operating system.
Exactly.
Awesome. How and where do I see that stuff?
Well, it's right in the contact record. So you can see, if I go back to command here, on the right-hand side of the screen is my activity feed. That's everything that's happening. Now, if I were to go in and actually start favoriting listings and creating collections, you would see all of that show up on the right-hand side.
Okay, you keep saying the word collections. And everyone saw it and heard about it on stage. What's a collection?
Yeah, so I'm going to go right in here to the phone, and you can see I'm searching on the consumer app. If I wanted to create a collection, I'm just going to click on this listing here. And let's say I drill into this listing, which happens to be a new apartment complex, and I could heart this listing. Now, it's going to ask me to save this listing to a collection, and we'll just call that David's Favorites. That's the default one it gives you. I'm going to hit save. And as I save this, that will create a new collection right inside the phone. Now, how does the consumer get back there? If they go to save, they're going to see all of their recent collections show up right there. The agent will also see that same thing show up in the activity timeline. So as I hit refresh here, you can see I created a collection called David's Favorites. I viewed David's Favorites. I added a new listing. All this stuff is happening in real time.
Okay, so before he moves forward, I just want to point out that what it also shows you is here where it says viewed a new listing. It says like this weird code. That is the code for the property. So this is a clickable code. You could click that and it would open up the property so that way you can view the details of it yourself as well. So it just doesn't, it looks a little different because it doesn't have an address. But that is what they pop up with in this video. Some of them have updated so that way it's actually the address that is clickable instead of a weird code like that. Just FYI.
You can see I created a collection called David's Favorites. I viewed David's Favorites. I added a new listing. All this stuff is happening in real time.
Okay, so this is no longer esoteric. We're not 30,000 feet. We're now talking about a direct link, meaning right there on that phone, you created a heart property and now you had a collection. Then in real time, the real estate agent is in the contact card, and on the right side, we're seeing a running narration of exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. Step by step, what's happening with your consumer's app in real time.
So what's all this talk about co-buyers?
Yeah, so let's pretend that I had a co-buyer. You and I were going to go in business partners on an investment, and I added you as a co-buyer to my collection. You would automatically be created as a contact in Irene's database.
Say that again?
You would automatically be created as a contact in Irene's database if I added you as a co-buyer to my collection.
Wow, so in this way, my data bank is organically growing by the mere fact that I'm allowing consumers to add more.
Also, so fun fact, if you share your app with someone who is not in your database and they sign up and say, yes, Stacy Hesser is my, I keep going with Stacy, sorry, I'm picking on you. Yes, Stacy Hesser is my.
I love you. I love you.
It will automatically add me to her database. It will not be a complete contact because I only need my email and my name to register on the app. So that's all that Stacy will get in her database. But it will tell me automatically into Stacy's database, here's my email, and it will tag it to say that it was either a lead or it might even say app. KW app. I don't remember exactly what the tag says, but it does tag that person as well to show you where it came from. So fun fact on that one.
For people into their real estate experience.
We're lead generating for Irene. I'm lead generating for her by adding you into my database. You're now in hers too.
That's fantastic. And they can go through, they can add co-buyers, they can heart properties, they can also hide properties.
Exactly. Just like you could heart a property, you can also hide a property. We all have, as agents, have had those properties that technically match all the criteria, but no one wants to see them again.
Yeah, so this brings up a really interesting conversation about best practices, right? Because now on the right side of the contact card, you're going to see this running curation of everything that's happening on the app. Some folks will tell you, call no matter what, but that may be a little big brothery and a little bit strange. Here's what I would tell you. The only thing we get control as real estate agents are who we follow up with and by what frequency and what intensity. This is to say that when you start seeing people hoarding property after property after property, that might mean that they're getting ready to do something. That might be a great time to send a text message or make a phone call. You're going to see people start hiding properties more. That's another tip. They're getting in and they're starting to interact with the real estate. You're going to start to notice them just casually looking at properties. This is just how people live. Remember, you guys, there was 9.6 billion real estate searches done last year. That's what our partners at Google told us. So I wouldn't necessarily call every time somebody is on. I would call when you start to see changes in their behaviors. And what we're going to start to do is curate these changes in the behaviors and make you smarter through insights as we go.
Yeah. So once we actually are in an opportunity with a client, we're actually going to buy a house. You'll see those opportunities right here on the right-hand side of the screen too. Let's click into this buyer opportunity and you can actually see what's going on with the guide. Remember we created our guide earlier and customized it? You now have a new tab inside the opportunity called Buyer Profile. This is where you can see your consumer connected and you can start to see what step of the guide they're on. You can also manage this guide by completing things for them as you move forward through the transaction.
Yeah, this is vitally important. Remember, in order to get into your opportunities, they had to be moved to curate, which means they kind of raised their hand and said, hey, I'm getting closer to doing something. So you may see the buyer or the seller moving through the guide on your side. Although you also may just talk to them on the phone and they say, oh, by the way, I got it pre-approved, and you want to move them to the next step in their guide. You do that through opportunities in the buyer or seller profile. That's how you move people through. So remember, in order to get to where we are now, you've went in and you've thought about your business and you've decided exactly the experience you want the consumer to have. Then you went and you made sure that the guide matched up to that experience, keeping in mind if you don't want to make any changes, it already matches the buyer presentation and the listing presentation that you already had in designs. Then you've invited people in any of the 1 of 4 ways that we showed you. Now you saw that they connected because you got your green check mark. Now you're moving people through the experience, and before you know it, you guys, you've created the end-to-end platform. Keller Williams, you have the advantage. Use it.
Okay. So that is, I felt that was really cool. I thought that was really cool. So, but yeah, I think that it was helpful for me to kind of see the videos, but also to read through the articles because I was prepping for this class and I wanted to make sure that what I was going to be bringing you wasn't just a, you know, here's my phone, look at it, and it look great. So I wanted to make sure that I was bringing you something that was actually going to be valuable and helping you guys work with and master your KW consumer app. So we have about 5 minutes left-ish. Does anybody have any like questions or anything like that? Something specific that you want me to go back to or that you're experiencing that maybe we can work through?
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Tiffany. I think that was very, very helpful. I appreciate all the reference to where to find information later because I'm one of those that I'll forget it in 5 seconds. I need to go back and look at it again.
Well, that's how I was. I was feeling a little overwhelmed, like people throwing information at me during these trainings that I'm attending, the Train Your Trainers classes, and I'm like, oh my, I'm writing as fast as I can and I'm still like missing things. So I thought it would be super beneficial for all you guys to know where I go when I'm trying to educate myself to do these trainings. So that way, if like Joanna said, you have to, or you need to go back because you haven't gotten to that part yet and you're like, I left my brain. You'll have a reference to go back to it.
And I appreciate you're making me laugh. All right, I'm going to jump off here. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Kay.
I'm glad you recorded this so I can go back and look at it.
Yes, with that being said, I am going to, once we're done with this class, I'm going to wait for it to convert and I will post it on Facebook. It usually takes about an hour for it to finish converting and get approved by Facebook, and it will be up there.
Okay, I'm one of those people. I have to look at it 10 times.
I do too, Kay.
Makes me feel old.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome. All
Thank
right,
you,
guys.
Tiffany.
If you guys have any questions, you can always reach out to me, all right?
All right, thanks.
Hey,
Bye.
Kay, real quickly.
Yeah,
I've been using the app, but I'm still coming here just to watch more. So yeah,
I'm thick-headed. I have to see something a lot.
Yeah.
And I can't read it. I have to see it. So I'm so glad that she showed all this to us, and then I can go back and look at it. And once I do it 3 or 4 times myself, I'm fine. But for her to go on here and share her screen so I knew what was going on,
it's always helpful.
always.
All right.
All right,
Everybody have a blessed day.
bye, ladies.